Right, just going to put a drop of lube on top of these shifter dowels, not the dowels, the pins on top of the shifter forks, and then basically get your shifter drum and start sort of getting it into position. And move your shifter forks to suit where the pattern is on your drum. And then once you've got that far, just press down on your supports just to get them to go down properly on the dowels, and then just grab your now these bolts tighten up to 12 Newton meters, so I'll just grab my torque wrench, which is still set up. Just give them a nip up first on all. Right, and then just torque them up. Right, so once they're torqued up, we'll get the spring on there. Get it sorted out. Right, that's the spring on. Your shifter pawl just make sure it springs itself. When you're changing gear, I don't know if you can see there's that, yes you can. You've got your shift lever here, and as you move that, it pushes that shifter pawl forward, which pushes on them pins, which in turn turns the shifter drum, and then when you pull it back the way, it'll pull that way to change the gears the other way. Right, and now that that's done, let's drop that will run down the arm. And that'll slowly work its way down the groove. Right, and what we'll do next is we'll get the centering pin screw. Now that goes through in here and centres between the spring in there, which if I get a torch, yeah, it centres on that spring there. So I'll get the big Torx bolt, Torx bit. So I'll just screw it in so far first by hand. What I'll do at the back end of this is I'll just put a bit of thread sealer on it before I put it in. If I can find it. Thread sealant. And I've put the thread sealant at the back of the threads, not at the front. So just screw it in, keeping an eye on when your pin starts to come through. Torch on now. Right, what I'll do is I'll try and get some light in here so you can see. Right, you can see the pin starting to come through there. You just need to push the shifter pole forward so that the pin can screw between the two tangs on the spring. Then grab your Torx bit. And then your ratchet. And then just tighten that on. Right. And that is all your shifter mechanism put back in. So I'll knock you off for now and we'll get on to the next bit. Right, just a quickie. What I meant to say when we put all this on is the way it's set up, the way I've put it on, the gearbox is in neutral. So if you were to grab your pulley, like the way your pulley goes on, you can turn your main shaft and it's not turning the gearbox. But if I was to click either way on that, it would put it into gear and then it would turn you where your pulley sits. And also I checked back on videos when we were putting stuff together, and when I put the sump on, the sump pan, oil pan onto the bottom of the gearbox casing, and I read them instructions out to you, you'll remember that it said on the instructions to coat the oil pan gasket face with gasket cinch and then put the gasket on. And you'll notice that I coated the gasket and then put it onto the oil pan. And the reason I did that is because when you coat your gasket and then lift the gasket off the lump of card that I had it on, you've got gasket cinch on the gasket alone. If I was spreading it round on my oil pan and there's some dripped off the side, it'd be in your oil pan. So that's why I do the gasket and not the oil pan face. I just thought I'd clear that up, just in case anyone was wondering. Right, the next thing with this would be to put the cover on the top, but I need to clean the cover up and that yet. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this to one side, I'll cover it up, put it to one side, and we'll probably start next. We'll put the clutch basket back together, clutch hub and that in on the clutch basket back in the clutch hub, press the bearing in, etc. So I'll knock it off for now and we'll get sorted out and get on to the next bit. Right, I'm going to push the clutch centre bearing in. So if you get your new bearing, and it wants to go right inside up, and the part number for this is 376, no it's not, it's 37906-90. Right, just get it sat in the clutch basket. Put your tool on. Centralise it up a bit. I've got a support underneath where the bearing's being pressed in. But once you've let it off and let it centre itself, just push it home. And you see you cleared the groove for the retaining ring. What I'll do next is I'll grab the retaining ring and a bit of lube, and I'll just pour some lube into this bearing. Put a little bit on the retaining ring. I'll grab my circlip pliers. Now your retaining ring's got like a beveled side and a flat side, and the flat side wants to go towards the bearing, the beveled side obviously away from the bearing. And if you can, don't get your circlip pliers stuck. Just give that a bit of a spin around. Right, next step is I'll lift it off its supporting ring, and I'll get a different support ring so it's supported on the inner race of the bearing, because we're going to push the clutch hub in next. So get your support ring on and line it up, and then get your hub. Before I push the hub in, I'll just get the right size tool. Right, you get your hub, centre it over the bearing. Get your press piece on board, central it all up, or should I say centralise it all up. And then start to push the hub in. Centralise it again. And then push it all the way in. And now your centre should spin freely, and it should also be that you can just get your groove there for your circlip to go in. So I'll just sit that there for a second, and I'll get the circlip, put a dab of lube on it.
Excuse me, sir, but I'm afraid someone is endeavouring to contact you
telephone.
telephonically. Shall I tell them to fuck off? Excuse me, sir, but I'm afraid someone is endeavouring to contact you telephonically.
Right, get your new circlip over, make sure it's in the groove. And that's your clutch back to, well, not your clutch, but the clutch basket and hub back together. Right, so I'll just knock it off for now. I'll get on to the next bit. Right, we're going to put the top cover back on the gearbox. I've got a new gasket. What I wanted to show you, there's some writing on the gasket, always check it. That's basically the gasket number, but underneath, this side up. So, I mean that one, you can't put it on upside down, it won't fit, but there is, so what I'll do, I'll grab the other gaskets that came. When you buy these gasket sets, they come with different types of gaskets. Now, that's the one that goes on this box, but you also get one of these. Now, obviously that still can go on, but that's the wrong way. Well, it's not the wrong way, actually it's the right for the box, but it's not for this one. This is probably off an earlier box, but you get the different gaskets when you buy the kit. So select your correct gasket. As I say, it says this side up, so put your gasket the right way up, line the holes up, and then we'll grab the cover, just drop the cover over, and just start your bolts in, make sure they go in and they're not catching on the gasket or out. Now I'm just going to nip this cover down, I'm not going to torque it, because these front two bolts are longer. They're longer than the standard ones. Reason being is my cover that covers my oil pipes bolts on here. So what I'll do is I'll just nip the cover down, and just to make sure it's all in line I will thread them in a little bit. Make sure the gasket's not catching, etc. Yeah, I will nip it down, and then when it's in the bike and I've got the cover on, I'll torque all the bolts down properly. Let's grab a ratchet. The bolts on these, they only torque down to something like 12 Newton meters if I'm not mistaken. Right, now that that's on, you'll notice that I've got a neutral switch in there. Now, when I was cleaning it, I've cleaned the underside, that's what I was wanting to clean. I've took the neutral switch out, and I've took the old O-ring off. Chuck that to one side. I've got the new O-ring, which I'll just fit on. Get it down into its little slot. Right, that's the O-rings on the switch, and I'm just going to grab my Loctite thread sealer. Now this isn't a thread locker, it's just a sealer. I'm just going to put a tiny little dabber, get it to come out. Yeah, just a tiny little bit of thread sealer, and then screw the neutral switch in. And then what you want to do is grab yourself a long reach socket, and I always torque these up to like sort of 18 Newton meters, but a long reach socket so it can go on, and if you use the short socket there's a chance you could catch your two contacts and damage them. So use a long reach socket, but a 7/8 socket, and then just torque it up. They're not that tight, as you can see, 18 Newton meters. And that's your neutral switch back in. Right, what I'm also going to do is I'll just spin this box round. I'm just going to slip the belt pulley on. Now remember, this is a left-hand thread, so what you'd normally do to undo it is how it goes on. Now this is just to hold it in place temporary. I won't be tightening it up yet. Right, and with the gearbox, that's it for now. So I'll knock it off. Oh, actually, what I want, there's the little like the oil breather pipe. Basically that just, let me just lift that up a bit, it just goes on the outlet and just pushes in place. Put it wherever you want it, but put it back how it was. Right, and that's it for now, so we'll get on to the next bit. Another thing I've been meaning to say, you might have noticed that I never took the drain plugs out. Obviously I did when I drained all the oil out, but then I put them back in. When I cleaned it all up I took them out and then put them back in. I've got new ones to go in, which I'll put in once once it's all back together, before I put my fresh oil in. So if you want new drain plugs for your for your bottom of your oil pan and your gearbox, the part number is 60328-98B, and it's drain plug with O-ring magnetic. So any bits that are floating about stick to the lal bit on the end. So, just if anyone wondered, it will be getting new plugs in. Right.